I received a phone call from a 71-year-old Vietnam vet born January 1st, 1949, in Henderson, Kentucky. He skipped high school to serve in Vietnam during the Tet Offensive from 1967 to 1969, and he sent me a copy of his DD-214. He served in the U.S. Navy from April 16th until October 10th of 1969, 67 to 69. He said Vietnam then was really rough and he wanted out. So he returned to the United States and was hired by the Department of Defense to work as a generator maintenance technician for the White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico, beginning in 1969 for the next 7 years. He asked me to call him Stephen P. because even after 50 years since he signed his Navy non-disclosure agreements, he is still worried. They were designed to make military personnel keep secrets, and his secrets have included his firsthand eyewitness knowledge of UFOs and small gray beings at White Sands. But he has had 6 heart attacks, several surgeries, and when I first talked to him by phone this past weekend, he said, quote, "Linda, I would like to leave with someone who cares about the truth, what I witnessed at White Sands," close quote. And so tonight, I have the privilege to share with you fascinating real-life testimony that is his eyewitness testimony from his years working all over White Sands Missile Range.
The first time I encountered a UFO was 3 o'clock in the morning missile launch, and I was at a site on the missile range called Russ Site, RUSS. And a friend of mine that was running the telemetry station there, he and I witnessed a great big, what we thought was a green comet coming from the north on the horizon, and it went to White Sands and hovered over a launch complex over there, and it got here in like 2 minutes from the horizon. And then once it hovered, it was a great big emerald green orb, huge, like a large emerald that's been lighted. And we could see it from 34 miles away.
What did you estimate its diameter?
Oh, my God, I couldn't even estimate. We're 30-something miles away, and it was huge in the sky. And while we were watching it, 12 little intense, bright, white lights came out the bottom of it and ran all over, up and down the mountains over there behind the launch complex, up and down the canyons and all up on the hillsides and all over, which are miles long. And they were traveling those mile-long canyons in seconds. And then after about 3 or 4 minutes, they all gathered back up under the craft and went right back up in it. I know the military knew it was there because they chased it with F-4s, and they ran it away from the launch complex. It went south towards Oro Grande, New Mexico, and we saw a tape at White Sands Photo Lab. One of the pilots stated later that it accelerated to Mach 10, went to Oro Grande, slowed to Mach 5, and made 2 90-degree turns, and were back over the launcher before they could turn the F-4s around over Oro Grande.
Just like the big green orb was playing cat and mouse with the F-4s.
Yeah, oh yeah. They said it was hovering back over the launch complex within a matter of minutes.
What did you see with your own eyes of the gun camera that they showed you?
It was just that thing leaving the launch complex. They launched these planes from Holloman, which was a lot closer to the launch complex than I was at Russ Site. The jets left with the afterburners on and proceeded that way towards the launch complex. So we got to see their afterburners in the night sky heading towards this green orb. And when they got what I assumed to be about halfway to their destination, that green orb elevated another few thousand feet, and then it just vanished almost. It turned into the same thing we saw previously when it came from the horizon, which looked like a green comet. It was traveling so fast, visually, it looked like it had a long green tail.
Did they monitor in any kind of a recording device?
They did. They had nose film from a camera that went to the photo lab at White Sands. It was a 3 o'clock in the morning mission. It was pitch black except for a few stars in the sky. F-4s were scrambled, I think. They got some nose camera film.
Where geographically would the big green UFO have hovered over before it emitted all the little lights?
That was Launch Complex 36, I believe. This was in Athena, and it was supposed to go to Green River, Utah, and impact on that missile range there. That great big emerald green orb prevented the missile from being launched. We finally canceled the mission.
The UFO interrupted a missile launch exercise.
Correct.
Was everything shut down on the missile?
I do not know that. All I know is that the F-4s were scrambled shortly after the little bright lights went back up in the belly of that thing, and they chased it south towards Rio Grande.
The sun comes up. You're working there. What was the scuttlebutt among people about what had happened in the night?
They kept it pretty hush-hush. And the few of us that did witness it, we'd already signed forms that we wouldn't talk about stuff we saw out there and stuff they were testing. You know, most of us on the missile range were capable of viewing this thing, including the people at the launch complex. They all have security clearances, and they aren't supposed to speak about stuff like that they see.
But as you and I discussed, we're talking about 50 years later now.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't going to say anything to anybody so I didn't look like a crazy person, but I would like somebody to bestow this knowledge on before I'm gone from here so somebody else knows what I've seen.
I'm grateful because I know that you are telling me the truth.
Well, the next startling thing I saw was I was leaving the La Luz gate and headed for my home in La Luz, New Mexico, where I lived at the time. And I encountered two gray aliens that looked like kids wearing beach towels.
Beach towels?
It looked like they had brown beach towels over their shoulders. And there are some people in La Luz that let kids swim late at night out there. And I thought it was two children. They were walking side to side, like stiff-legged kids do when they lock their knees.
Mm-hmm.
And they were walking side by side, and they were about 3.5 foot tall. And they were wearing both identical, looked like brown beach towels draped over their shoulders. But when I got right up beside them where the headlights cast on them,
mm-hmm.
I saw one of them's profile from the side of his head, and it really spooked me.
What were you seeing?
I saw an alien gray. I saw his great big eyes and his big head, and they turned their heads away from my truck as the lights hit them. And I went home just as fast as I could go and told my wife, "You got to come with me. I got something to show you." And we went back to that site, and, of course, they were completely gone. But the other part of the story is, before I saw them, there was a vehicle in front of me about a quarter of a mile ahead of me on the road going into La Luz. And I saw him pull over to the left side of the road where they were walking on the north side, and I saw his brake lights come on. I saw him slow almost to nothing, and then just started fishtailing out of control. And he got back on the pavement and just really shagged it. And when I got up to where he was, and I saw what he saw, I had my truck on the floor with the tires smoking.
What did you see?
I saw two gray aliens.
You're saying that the two gray aliens that made both you and the other vehicle react are the two small childlike ones?
Yeah, they couldn't have been over 3.5 feet tall.
Why would anybody have reacted against seeing small childlike grays?
I'll tell you what, when I saw them, I had the distinct impression that they were dangerous, and I just wanted to get away from them. Just before they turned away from me, in my mind, you can hear it in your mind. It's like someone speaking to you in your mind. I clearly understood that I was not to stop and I was to leave the area. And that's exactly what I did, just as fast as I could. And I'm sure the fella in front of me had the same experience.
Did you then talk with anybody you worked with at White Sands about the grays?
Well, I actually saw the grays in 1975. And that was long after I'd seen the green orb, and I have seen two of those green orbs now.
When did you see the second one?
I was 13 years old, and I was jumping on my trampoline in my backyard here in Alamogordo up close to the foothills of the mountains, and it landed in a canyon here called Marble Canyon. It lit up the whole canyon with an emerald green glow. It was about 10:30 at night. Myself and another youngster, he was 14, his name was George Robertson. His father was playing cards with my parents, and he and I were outside jumping on the trampoline, and we watched this thing come down and land in the canyon. And then the green glow went out, but those little white intense lights, like I explained to you were in the second one I saw, ran all over the canyon, up and down and everywhere. And when we tried to approach the craft, it was only like a half a mile from where we were. We tried to run up the canyon to see what it was. And when we got to the mouth of the canyon, it was so cold that it actually hurt you. We couldn't enter the mouth of the canyon where this thing had landed because it was like minus hundreds of degrees, it felt like. It just hurt your skin and your bones. And we had to turn around and retreat.
Do you think that the huge drop in temperature created by the green orb craft was a defensive move to keep humans away or an offensive move to change the environment for them?
I do not know. I assume they didn't want us to come any closer because it was just like a wall. It was 95 degrees in the desert, and all of a sudden it was like way below zero. And when we hit that cold wall, we just had to turn around and back up. It was painful.
When you then were working at White Sands, did you ever ask anyone about the green orb? You saw it. It was playing cat and mouse with the F-4s.
I did, but, all the people I was familiar with work on the missile range, and they are out there at late-night missions and whatnot, and they don't care to discuss that kind of stuff. They'd rather try to ignore it. And please go away and leave me alone.
Because they've been ordered that they will be punished if they talk about the reality of other intelligences on this planet. That's the truth.
I know that as a fact. A friend of mine worked at a site called a rat scat, and they were a big radar site. And I was out there talking to him one night, and their alarm went off inside, and he went back in to see what was going on. And on radar screen, they had 5 UFOs together in a pattern. And they passed over Rat Scat site 3 times, and they were caught on radar all 3 times. And after that, he quit. He wouldn't work out there anymore at night.
What was it that scared him?
Those UFOs. He said he wasn't going back out there with that kind of crap that nobody knows what it is, and nobody knows what he wants or what he wants to do.
Did you hear anybody talk, even in scuttlebutt, about what the 5 UFOs on radar, like have you heard somebody say, those are grays, those are reptiles, those are Nordics, those are some different types?
Nobody knew. They said that they had seen these things on radar before, but usually they just passed overhead really quickly. But this night they passed over 3 times and then hovered for a few minutes, long enough for everybody to go outside and look at them. Everybody was saying, what the hell is that?
What was the shape on radar?
Circular. They just saw a circular blip.
What was the operation at Ratscat?
They're strictly a radar site. They track missile flights and anything that comes into missile range airspace.